What's up guys, Darkdally here, playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and today I want to relay to you what I know of the game creator's idea for the game, Breakpoint, where they wanted to go, and how they got it to this point. Now, by now, many of you are already playing the beta, as am I. The following I'm about to give you in this video comes from interviews conducted with the various men behind the game from the Breakpoint preview that I attended last month. I personally sat down with the creative director, Eric Kuzian, and listened to everything else that the other members of the team had to say. Now, all the gameplay that you're seeing now is from the recent Breakpoint preview that I attended, hosted by Ubisoft. Okay, so this is important because the direction of Breakpoint and their vision of the game, as well as how they got here, may well differ from what you think. I did get to sit down and have an interview with the creative director, though I didn't have a way to record it, so I listened to what he and the other members of the team had to say. Now, before I get into what the team themselves had to say, I want to put this forth. They have learned from previous Ghost Recon games. The current executive producer has been on the team since back in the days of GRAW, and these guys do listen to the community. Many people seem to want to believe they're just a nameless, faceless corporation, but that's simply not true, and I'll illustrate many ways in which that is simply not true here within this video. When I arrived at the Breakpoint preview event, after the presentation, all 32 of us were assigned our own PC stations to play the game at. We had about 6 hours of game time. Now, I was originally an alpha group. All in all, there were 4 teams, each with 2 4-player groups, allowing us to play as a team in co-op as well as in 4v4 PvP. So what I'm saying is there was a bunch of computers and we were all signed in. I was assigned to Group Alpha. Well, after the presentation, at the beginning of the event, I was heading to my assigned gaming station when a very nice and cute PR lady pulled me aside and let me know that the station I was assigned to used an Xbox controller and asked me if I'd instead prefer a PS4 controller. They do pay attention to the community. They knew, or at least she did, that I play on PS4, and when I told her that I'd prefer a PS4 controller for the familiarity, she swapped me to Golf Group, which were PC stations also, but they were outfitted with PS4 controllers. What I mean by this is these guys know the community, and in many ways, I'm sure they're a part of it, and we just may not know. Keep in mind that as I go through some of these points, because the Ubisoft team behind Ghost Recon Breakpoint are actually doing everything they can to make the game better. And full disclosure, this includes flying me out there and accommodating me at a hotel at their, expense near the venue so that I could get a look into the game and bring it directly to you guys. That was really important to me. They're like, Darkdally, come out here, we want you to play this game, and that implies exactly what we're doing right now. So first up in the event was the presentation. Now this was before our play session. It was like the first thing in the day, like 9 a.m. was the presentation. And the first guy on the stage, the keynote speaker was, of course, executive producer, and forgive me if I mispronounce his name, Mr. Noordin About. And he's the main Ghost Recon guy you see in all the videos. And the main thing that I really got during his speech was he stressed about during this time was the main theme seemed to be one of survival. He really does want us to feel like we are boots on the ground spec ops. And they brought in military consultants, to help develop the game to make sure that our experience was as enjoyable as possible. Not only that, but I mean, just as an example, the writer of the game himself is a veteran and former 14-year Green Beret of the U.S. Army. A bit more on him in a minute. Now, Noordin continued to press the survival aspect of the game and reminded us that when playing, aim for the head. He's like, remember, aim for the head, except he said it in a French accent. Now, I'm not here to speculate the exact gear and plate levels of a random enemy in Breakpoint, but I will say that I can go down the street to the store right now and get a plate carrier with level 4 plates for $300 off the shelf, and that'll stop a 7.62 NATO round cold in its tracks. That's all I'm saying, is that in this game, you kind of want to aim for the head. I'm not saying they're bullet sponges. You guys have seen my video already. I'm saying you can put a few rounds in their chest. They may not stop, but hey, I can go right down the street and buy the same armor that'll stop that. Let's move on here, guys. I've been rambling. My experience with the game is that I did use far more bullets. I did use far more bullets, aiming center mass than I did with one bullet that it took the head area. So kudos to Noordin for pointing this out to me. I had revised my aim a little bit, as in previous Ghost Recon games I did an aim center mass. You should really aim for the head in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So, survival, right? Now, Though this was not mentioned at any time, they've obviously taken quite a bit from the Far Cry series here. We now have radial menus from multiple items aiding in survival, and also we now have crafting. You can pick herbs from the ground and combine ingredients to make healing elements. Now, this idea of survival leads into the next speaker. The writer of the game, a Mr. Emile Dalbon, the aforementioned Green Beret they have on the team, his role was to write the spoken lines and dialogue that you'll hear in the game. He made them as realistic as he could. I mean, being a 14-year veteran, well, 14 years in the Green Berets, I didn't ask him for his whole military history. What I'm saying is that this is in relation to the experience that he thought that particular NPC might have. More trained individuals, for instance, might display a different vernacular than lesser trained conscripts. And he made sure that this appears in the game. When you hear enemies speak in the game, they're going to be speaking, and their lines were written by a 14-year veteran, of a special operations team. And he made sure of this. He also reinforced the real feeling of what it might feel like to be boots on the ground, while, of course, still at the same time melding it in with a bit of fantasy that we expect in the video game. The fact is that real life is not nearly as interesting for someone seeking entertainment. Don't forget that. Real life military operations, that's not what people really want in a video game. Not really. You want some entertainment. Real life is actually not that interesting. So they're recreating for us the most realistic experience they can, while trying at the same time to fulfill our need for entertainment. As this all, after all, this is just a game. So before I continue on with words from the developers, of which I was able to interview Mr. Kuzion, the creative director, and I want to add some more broad strokes to the painting, so to speak, before we head on here. So there is planned DLC, and it's not going to be like in Wildlands, where each required you to re-roll a new character. No. Here in Breakpoint, they intend to expand the story in such a way with each DLC that in my own words, it will put you further into the story. Each DLC adds to the story, or will add, I should say, and not instead, like in Wildlands, instead of as in Wildlands where it has added a different branch, different unrelated scenario, here it's going to draw you deeper into an evolving story. Now, as we know, this game has a leveled gear system. We're moving on to the next point here, guys. Sorry. Keep up. Next point. We have a leveled gear system, and many people want to know how this will work when we're running with a group with many individuals at different character levels. Like, let's say I'm level 40 or whatever, and I'm all decked out in blue or purple gear, or I don't know what comes after blue. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And let's say I'm running a group with a level 5 guy, and he's just got gray and green gear. Now, I personally look at this as it is in Wildlands. I'm taking this from what they said and kind of paraphrasing here, though I think it may be a bit different. I only had 6 hours with the game at the preview event, though right now I'm playing the beta and I'm getting much more experience. But they did say that if you're lower level and in a group with a higher level individual, that you can run at different difficulties and each player will have basically their own experience. As in, I could be lower level playing with a level 40 friend, I could put on easy mode while he puts it on whatever other mode, and we'll be able to get along in the mission. This honestly really doesn't say a whole lot, and I'm personally still a bit skeptical, as like in the Division when running with higher level mates. I guess we'll just have to see. So I really couldn't draw any real hard conclusions from that one. Now, there are many features at the launch of the game that are going to be new to many of you for the Ghost Recon franchise. That is, many of you who are used to the Ghost Recon franchise, you're going to see some new stuff here you haven't seen before. First, there are classes. Now, we did have classes in Ghost War back in Wildlands. Now, but here, because everything carries across, through all modes, just so you're going to have classes. Now, for right now, there's only 3. There's a stealth-based one, there's an assault-based one, and there's a long-range, sniper-based one. But they've already confirmed there will be more coming. They've confirmed at least one more coming for sure. They just didn't say when. Now, I know this sounds restricting, but it's actually not. A class you choose will give you, they do give you a few special abilities, as well as kind of guide you towards, selecting certain skills off the skill tree. And I'll be showing you the skill tree here soon in an upcoming video. But you can and will, be able to have multiple classes spec'd out, and you can switch on the fly for whatever scenario. In fact, even in just within the first couple hours of the beta, I was already had 2 different classes, and I was able to swap between them. So yeah, and the game does not pigeonhole you into one class or another. So now let's talk about PvP. PvP, yeah, you guys know I'm not a big PvP guy, but I got to play an hour of it at the preview event, and I may do some more here in the coming days during the beta. Now, unlike in Wildlands, PvP is already available in the beta, and it will be available at launch. As of now, there are 2 modes. There's a basic 4v4, and there's another one where, well, I'm not good at PvP terms because you guys know I'm not a fan, but there's another mode where you either have to plant bombs or you're the team who defuses the bombs. It's kind of fun because you never know. It's like random. It's like, oh, we're planting them this time, or oh, we're defusing them this time. That one was actually kind of fun. I played it for an hour at the preview, but then I had to move on to other things. Now, of course, more PvP will be available after launch. Remember, in Wildlands, Ghost War itself wasn't in the game until way after launch, and thus was based around already in-game assets, not necessarily designed for PvP scenarios. Here in Breakpoint, they did it the other way around. Here, they made certain areas in the game specifically for PvP and then put them into the game. So here, the arenas are not just incidental locations, but rather locations designed for PvP as they were designed with the game map as they designed the map. Breakpoint promises to bring a lot more to the PvP aspect throughout the period of the game's release, and I can only speculate. So much I can't really say here, but trust me guys, there's going to be a lot more PvP features come to the game, though I do still feel this game is story-centric, and that's why I like to play it. So, okay, so here's another question that people are going to be asking. Where is our AI teammates? When Breakpoint was first announced, Ubisoft said no AI teammates, and then they broke down and said, okay, we will do AI teammates. But as you guys are experiencing right now in the beta, there's no AI teammates, just as I did. And it's like, where are they? I'll tell you. And this is from the executive producer himself, Mr. Nordine. They want us to start alone. They want us to start alone, boots on the ground, in the thick of it. They want us to feel isolated. These are basically paraphrasing his words. They want us to feel like a Spec Ops guy on the ground, alone, deserted. You're the survivor from a helicopter wreck. They're really going for that feel as much as they can of what it's like to be a ghost alone in the battlefield. We will have AI teammates, so I guess I should have skipped ahead to that. We will have AI teammates brought into the game later on. They have confirmed that. They just haven't said when, but it will be at the appropriate time, and it will be integrated with the story, and this is purposeful. They want us to feel like this, and then they're going to work it into the story, guys. As far as my actual interview that I had with the creative director, Eric Kuzian, I'll admit it's the first interview I've done, in my fledgling game reporting career. I've never interviewed anyone before. So when I'm sat behind, when I'm sat on a couch with one of these guys who developed a game that I love so much, you kind of find yourself a bit speechless. Even though I did have questions written out, it's kind of like, and I didn't have any means to record with me because the strict NDA said we weren't allowed to record anything. Well, my fault. I did have a list of questions though. Now, because I didn't have any way to record him, I can't quote him exactly, but I'm going to relay to you as much as I can the conversation I had with the creative director. I mean, this guy was basically in charge of everything. The creative director is basically in charge of putting everything together and putting it in the game. He was the guy I wanted to talk to. So one thing I was curious about was the hubs found at faction points throughout the world of Aroa where you encounter other players. Even though the presence of other players is completely absent throughout the rest of the game, he made a great point by reminding me that of all the helicopters that go down when the ghosts came to the island in the very opening cinematic of the game, ours wasn't the only chopper to have survivors. The maximum of 32 other players that you may encounter in these hubs represent the other ghosts who survived the incursion and are currently looking to, well, whatever you're looking to do to get off or the island or stop, whatever. I don't want to spoil too much of the story here. And I thought that was kind of cool. He said, well, there's a maximum of 32 others, and he kind of questioned me. He was kind of like, well, you don't think there was survivors from the other helicopters? And I was like, good point, sir. Now, here is where I wish that I did have a means of recording, and that's when I probed him further into the crafting mechanisms within the game and asked him if they intended on expanding that dimension of the game. Meaning, will we see more involved crafting of different kinds of items and stuff within the game? And because I couldn't record it, I could only read his facial expression there and think that yes, perhaps we will in the future see more involved survival methods. I mean, he kind of gave me that kind of look, but he didn't answer, so I'm not going to say he said one way or the other. Now, one thing I asked him was about weapon wraps. We saw a few weapons in Wildlands with custom ghillie wraps, and of course we all want the option to ghillie up our own sniper rifles. I asked further about other personalization options to weapons, such as those we saw on special versions of the weapons we saw in Wildlands that dropped from the various bouchons. He didn't say yes or no, but he assured me that it's much harder than I would think it'd be to make such graphical changes to a weapon, That is, to add graphics such as ghillie wraps to a weapon. I'm not a game developer, and I don't pretend to know how these things work. So, although I hope to see something like this, I can't say, but it really felt like a no to me, because everyone's been asking for ghillie wraps in their sniper rifles. And as soon as I brought it up, he was kind of already shaking his head. He's like, dude, it's much harder than you think. Now, lastly, the one thing I asked Eric, which showed the most promise when I asked him about the possibility of custom player-created missions or objectives. Something where we might be able to design a custom scenario for our own purpose of immersion and use as a platform for milsims, perhaps. And again, I got no answer, but I will say, and this is not to give hope, but there was a hint in his facial expression that something like this might be planned. This is just me reading his facial expression when he said that. I wish I had video of it. We'll just have to wait and see, guys. But when I asked him about the possibility of custom player created objectives, he didn't give me a no. He didn't give me a yes. Kind of tipped his head. I guess we'll have to see, guys. I do know they have a lot planned. I know there's at least, I'm pretty sure there's at least a 24-month plan for this game. I mean, just like with Wildlands, this game's got at least a 2-year schedule ahead of it. We'll just have to see. And they're definitely one-upping the game from everything they did in Wildlands, so who knows. So for now, guys, the beta is on, so let's all go explore and prepare ourselves for what I'm sure will be an incredible launch day on October 4. Guys, thank you so much for watching. All of this gameplay that I've been showing you this whole time is my own capture from the beta from the preview event, and I hope you find some hope or relief or good expectations from what I've been able to bring you from my own interactions with the team behind Breakpoint. Personally, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this game has to offer. Even a couple years down the road, I got hope, guys. I really do. Guys, I'm Darkdally. Thanks so much for watching. I will catch you all next time.